If you've ever been unimpressed with the flame of a typical propane torch, stay tuned because I'm going to be making this. I will be using this inexpensive blowtorch. These are widely available. However, this one's brand new and I've got this one that's seen better days. I'm going to be using it instead. You will also need two 1/8 pipe thread street elbows. These are the elbows that are male threaded on one side and female threaded on the other. And one more brass elbow, this one female threaded on both ends. You can see here how it differs from the street elbow. A 1/8 pipe thread square top plug. Be careful when selecting the threaded plug to use. They come in a few different varieties. The one that you need to be using is this one here. As you can see on the side, both sides are fairly parallel. This one you see here, right where the tip of my knife is, there is a ridge that will prevent this from being able to be used in this project. This here is a hex head plug and it also can't be used in this project. A section of 3/8 brass pipe, male threaded on both ends. These two brass pipe fittings will come together to form a part of our torch here. This is 3/8 to 1/4, 1/4 to 1/8. And these two pieces will thread together, giving us 1/8 to 3/8. Alternatively, this same assembly can be made with slightly different fittings. This one is 1/8 to 3/8. And then this piece here was purchased at Harbor Freight for a couple of dollars. It was fairly cheap. It was with the air compressor fittings and whatnot. And this is just a 3/8 to 3/8 coupler. And when these two pieces are threaded together, you get your 1/8 to 3/8. This piece is called a face bushing. And it's called a face bushing because it's designed to thread in completely flush. You see there's no flats on it to grip. It's supposed to thread completely down inside whatever you're threading it into. I'm just going to clamp this into my vise here and use a regular pair of pliers to turn this burner tube off. For removing that angled brass pipe off the end, I found it easier to clamp it into the vise and wrench the valve assembly off. This piece here we're going to be reusing, so I'm going to need to remove the orifice from it. Using a 732 socket, I remove the orifice from the brass pipe. Here's the torch all stripped down. The orifice is much too small for this torch I'm going to be making, but it's a fairly neat little piece of brass, so I'm going to save it, as well as the factory burner tube. I'm going to be reusing this piece with the torch valve assembly. I'm going to seal all pipe joints with a special Teflon tape that's rated for use with gas. And thread it onto the torch valve assembly. Then the angled brass pipe is installed into the elbow. Now that that's done, this is what you'll be left with. And looking at it, if I didn't remove the orifice, you could use this to modify the angle of the torch as it comes. I have the angled brass pipe facing downward. You'll see why here in a minute. Now with Teflon tape, the two elbows are threaded together. Thread them down as far as you can go until it gives you a nice U-turn. With the final elbow added, we've got this contraption now. 90-degree street, angled brass, 90-degree double female, and another 90-degree street. Now that 1/4 to 1/8 pipe fitting is going to need a little bit of modification. So I clamp it securely in the vise. The 1/8 thread on the inside of this doesn't go all the way through out the other side. So what I have here is a 1/8 NPT pipe thread tap. With plenty of cutting oil. And a tap handle. Now that I've tapped the threads completely through this brass piece, you can see this plug, not only can it thread in from the top like normal, it can thread in from the back, which it ordinarily couldn't. This also means that this particular plug can thread in upside down, which is important for this project. Enlarging the threads completely through this fitting makes this possible. That is also why this fitting with the lip at the end won't work. I kind of boogered this up a little bit, but that's okay. That's going to be cut off here in a moment. Now with our reducing coupler, the 3/8 to 1/4, this is going to get threaded in here as far as it will go and then cut off. We're almost done with this piece. You can see here I've threaded that 1/8 to 1/4 bushing in here and then cut it off and filed it flat. You can barely tell they're separate pieces now, but that gives me my 1/8 to 3/8 coupler here. I'm going to center punch some divots around here to drill my primary combustion air holes. So here's the finished piece. The 1/8 to 1/4 bushing threaded into the 1/4 to 3/8 coupler, and then finished off on the bottom, and then my primary combustion air holes all around the outside. The primary combustion air hole diameter is 3/16 of an inch, if anyone wants to know. Like a burner in a previous video, the tube of this burner is going to be this Apple coring tool. So I'm going to get that plastic off. Now this burner is starting to come together. The 3/8 pipe just threads into this piece. And then the face bushing on the end of that. This whole assembly slides together nicely. With my orifice drilled into the 1/8 plug, the 1/8 plug is threaded into the valve assembly. And then the burner tube simply threads onto the top half of the orifice. But the burner's not quite done yet. I've taken this snap-in drain strainer and cut the inner portion out with a pair of tin snips, as well as this 15/16 inch aerator screen. I found this at the hardware store at the place with all the faucet repair items. And as you can see here, I've pressed that inner portion of the sink strainer as well as the faucet strainer screen about an inch down inside the burner tube. Now let's fire it up and see how it works. And here they are compared side by side. I kind of like the idea I had earlier of mounting an elbow and then reinstalling the factory burner tube, so I made one of those too. The downward angle will make torching things at a downward angle much easier.